You're all going to whataboutisms here, and I can understand why, because Trump's in bad shape. So you're going back to Obama. Look, I agree with Tim on the Anwar al-Awlaki. I'm the guy who brought it up. I wonder if Tim agrees with me on cutting the Pentagon, because Tim, you and I agreed on cutting the Pentagon when I was on his show. And now all of a sudden they're not cutting. They're adding $150 billion. So they're frauds, right? Let's be honest about that.
Cenk Uygur was a guest on Piers Morgan's show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, to go up against a panel that included Michigan Representative Shri Tandahar, who is trying to get Trump impeached, and 3 MAGA types to varying degrees, Tim Pool, Kari Lake, and Batya Ungar-Sargon. We're going to take a look at these clips of Cenk Uygur and the others on Piers Morgan show, Piers Morgan Uncensored. I am going to share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
So, but we're going to whataboutisms here. We can go back to Grover Cleveland if you guys like, right? We can go back to James Polk if you guys like. But you're trying to distract from what's happening with Trump. I'm perfectly willing to criticize all the other Democrats in the past for all the things that they've done wrong. But right now, we got to rescue the country. And so at this point, there's 2 different problems. One is that Trump keeps doing things that are unconstitutional. And to your earlier point, Piers, that is not what people voted for. In fact, the reason Trump disavowed Project 2025 is because it was really unpopular. Now that he's actually doing Project 2025, yeah, it's really unpopular.
But what about
That's
this,
not
Cenk?
what
about
people
this,
wanted.
Cenk?
They just want.
But Cenk, but what about this? Look, I saw what Caroline Levitt said in her statement about 100 days. In his first 100 days, Donald Trump's delivered on hundreds of promises and already accomplished his 2 most important campaign goals. The border is secure and inflation is ending. The next 100 days will consist of trade deals, peace deals, and tax cuts. More American greatness on its way. Now, putting aside any partisan kind of flavor to all this, and putting aside that clearly right now things look quite bad for Trump, I could easily see a situation in 100 days' time, maybe not quite as quick as that, but certainly not far off it, where he might well have got a number of advantageous trade deals done, including China, where he could have forged peace in Ukraine, bringing an end to that war, and might well have done the same in Gaza, in which case he would be odds on to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this is not, in other words, it's all very turbulent, it's all very chaotic, but I could absolutely see a pathway to that all happening in the next few months. It could happen.
What if he
what if he turned into Santa Claus?
Well,
yeah, what if he turned into Santa Claus? Which part of that do you think may not happen? Presents to everybody.
Yeah, but Cenk, which part of that may not happen?
I think all of it might not happen. In fact, Piers, I think absolutely none of that is going to happen. That's why I formed Rebellion PAC to give people a left-wing populist alternative. Real economic populism. People should go check out rebellionpac.com, because we've got guys like Ro Khanna, Richard Ojeda, and other people who are actual populists who are going to do the things that Trump promised on the economic end and has not delivered. So, Piers, could he do 1 or 2 trade deals and then call it a day and pretend that he got a victory? He could, but it wasn't a victory. And if he keeps these tariffs on with China and others, soon we're going to have empty shelves. And all of this bloviating is going to be totally irrelevant, because once those empty shelves hit or the higher prices hit, I mean, we had the stock market downturn. That's not even the big problem. He's already hit an iceberg with that. But that's the tip. The actual iceberg is the American people. And when their prices start going up and when they start seeing empty shelves, they're going to be furious, because it's the exact opposite of what they voted for. And then you guys can come on here and start talking about Chester
I'm definitely going to get everybody back.
But it ain't going to make a difference.
Don't worry, I'm going to get everybody back in 100 days, because I've got a feeling it won't play out how you think, Chen. But I may be wrong. Kari.
I love the fact that Cenk calls what he does all day bloviating. I agree, and I think if we pulled that, most of America would agree. But President Trump has to do the hard work. He's assembled an administration full of hardworking human beings. They sometimes they have a misstep, but they're heading in the right direction for America. It's not an easy job. He's taking a lot of criticism because people like Cenk have to bloviate all day, to use his words, and he's got to have something to talk about. And he would lose the audience he has if he started talking about how incredible this agenda has been and the rolling out of this agenda. It's not going to be perfect. We're living in a real world here, and we're having to pick up the pieces and clean up after a dismal administration that the congressman sat by and didn't do anything about. First of all, I've never heard of this gentleman. I never heard him talk about how disastrous the economy was under Joe Biden. And I think it's really appalling for the people of Michigan. It used to be a middle-class state. It is an important state when it comes to our automaking here in America, the industry, and to hear that there is a congressman from Michigan who is opposed to this tariff plan to bring back the manufacturing we so desperately need and the middle class needs in Michigan and all 50 states. It's pretty shocking.
You got to be ready to bring manufacturing back. Trump has done nothing to establish incentives.
I want to stop here for just a moment, and then we will hear what the congressman has to say. So Kari Lake parrots the MAGA right-wing line of this disastrous economy under Joe Biden. We did have high inflation, but otherwise they never point to anything specifically about what was disastrous about the economy under Joe Biden. By all indications, it was a pretty strong economy. Now, were there things to criticize about it? Sure. I mean, I don't know that there's been a perfect economy in my lifetime, if ever. But the Kari Lakes and the Tim Pools and these other MAGA mouthpieces can never point to anything specific. It's just that it was bad. And now Donald Trump is fixing all these things. One of the things that they talk about a lot is gas prices. Trump keeps saying that the gas prices are down. I bought gas today at the cheapest place I could find in the area where I live, and it was 20 cents more a gallon than what I paid a few weeks ago. So, I mean, that's just my anecdote, but I don't see where gas prices are coming down. For me, they have gone up. And the things that Piers Morgan is saying about, well, in 100 days, Donald Trump, that is, might bring about peace between Russia and Ukraine, peace in the Middle East. That's just completely wishful thinking. I really hope he does have the same panel back, Piers Morgan, in 100 days so that Cenk Uygur can say, well, you were wrong, Piers. And I wonder if Piers Morgan will admit that he was wrong.
Is to bring manufacturing to America. And just putting these tariffs on foreign countries just doesn't solve the problem. We are starting to see auto factories closing. We're starting to see auto prices going up. We're starting to see auto workers losing jobs. These tariffs are not good for Michigan, and these tariffs are not good for America, and these tariffs are raising American prices. This is like a Trump sales tax on consumer goods for America.
Let me bring in Batya. I mean, Batya, it's interesting to me to see a number of Trump, big supporters breaking ranks a bit on tariffs. Elon Musk clearly is very anti them. The Barstool Sports founder Dave Portnoy being very critical. Bill Ackman, the big billionaire investor, Ken Griffin, another billionaire investor, they've all spoken out against them as well. And we've just seen what I would think is quite a worrying moment for the Trump camp, which is what's happened in Canada, where you've got a liberal candidate who's come from an apparent obvious defeat to seize victory by running on an anti-Trump ticket because of the way Trump spoke about Canada. I just think he's got to be careful, Donald Trump. I could absolutely see this working, but I could also see it blowing up in his face. It's a high-risk stakes that he's playing with here.
Yeah, rich people hate tariffs because they're supposed to. They are class warfare on behalf of the working class against the elites who have pillaged America's middle class for the last 40 years. We have sold out our children's future to China, which owns just trillions of dollars of U.S. Treasury bonds. That is not good. We get cheap crap from China. They get our children's future. Our kids are going to be paying off the interest on that debt for generations. They manufacture the PPE and the pharmaceuticals we need to fight the pandemics that come from China. They manufacture the ships we are going to need to fight China, our greatest adversary.
But I agree with you. I agree with you.
Listen, I know.
Yeah, but I agree with you. The question is,
I'm just saying, it was going to.
Is the tactic? Here's my question for you. I don't think anyone. Hang on. I don't think anyone disagrees with the overarching narrative that Trump has laid out, which is China's been ripping off America for decades. It has. As you say, it owns a lot of American debt, very bad for America. All the experts in the American economy have led to an economy with $37 trillion of American debt. If that's a success, I'd hate to see a failure. This is an economy that Elon Musk keeps warning is extremely perilous longer term and could easily end up with America going bankrupt. So Trump is doing radical stuff. I get it. The question is, will the way he's going about this, as many economic experts fear, will it blow up in his face and make things a lot worse? It could.
So here's the point, Piers. No one else had the guts, the courage, or a plan for how to address this. Getting yourself weaned off of an addiction to cheap crap from China was always going to be difficult. And that is why nobody did anything about it, even though, as you say, Piers, we all agree that this had to happen. There was no easy way to do that. There is no easy way to get countries around the world who have been fleecing us with their tariffs to suddenly decide, oh, you know what, maybe this is not okay. Maybe we should stop enriching our elites on the backs of the American working class. What Trump did was it's really amazing. There is now a 10% global tariff, which the world is actually relieved about because it came down from the heights of Liberation Day. Like, do you understand what a feat that was? That is seen as an improvement from countries that for decades have been fleecing us with their own tariffs. So this was always going to be hard. I have not heard a single other plan for how to get American manufacturing back to America. And it's just nonsense that Trump hasn't done that. He has $1.5 trillion in manufacturing committed since the day that he took office. Nobody else was able to do that. And to do that, you need a carrot and you need a stick, because American corporations are not suddenly going to wake up and be like, oh, maybe having a sense of what it means to have prosperity for our entire nation is more important than our quarterly reports. That was never going to happen without a little bit of pain.
Okay. I want to wrap things by asking all of you. I want to ask all of you to give Trump a grade. We can have A to E or an F for fail. Cenk, this is the 100-day grade for the president, Trump.
Yeah. Look, because he's so wildly unconstitutional, I want to give him an F minus, but I'm fair. He did close the border, and he is taking a lot of action. I think it's bad action, but at least it's something. So I'll give him a solid D.
A solid D. Batya?
A+, but I really admire Cenk, because I see you struggling to be fair, and even though I disagree with you, I admire that. I have to give him an A+. I think this has been, I never expected a president to fulfill this many campaign promises ever, certainly not in 100 days.
Before I ask you, Kari, just to be clear, you can't go above an A+.
You can't do 2 pluses?
No.
I'm going to give him an A+ because he has followed through on his campaign promises. The people of this country are getting what they voted for, and they're ecstatic about it. And I believe that this congressman will really regret the day when he looks back historically and sees what an incredible, transformative president President Trump will go down in history. He will be embarrassed about it. I cannot take this fake impeachment garbage seriously from a guy who looks like he pinned a squirrel on his head. He needs to get serious and start fighting. And start fighting for the people of Michigan, and stop fighting the president who's trying to help the people of Michigan.
When you don't have a good argument, you attack personally. That's what you do. Look, this president has done illegal, unconstitutional activities. He has ruined the economy. People having buyer's remorse about him.
Okay, give me a grade, Congressman.
I would give him an F minus.
F minus.
For the damage that he has created in America.
And here's a fact for you, Kari Lake, you may want to think about. The congressman, I've just been told, is 70 years old. You look about 50. What's your secret?
Well, he should be a little.
It's about America.
He should be more wise. At the age of 70, I would hope he'd be more wise in actually.
Can we at least agree he looks the most youthful 70-year-old I think we've ever had on Uncensored? So he may have a squirrel on his head, not my words, yours, Miss Lake, but he looks pretty good for 70.
Well,
he looks amazing for 70.
Look, I want America to look good and America's economy to do better and American people be able to afford things and have a better life.
Well, the beauty of all this is I can get you all back in 100 days. We would have asked Tim Pool, but we lost him. We had a technical issue there. I'm going to think that Tim might have given him a B, I think, if he was fair. possibly an A, but I think he may have gone B.
I think he would have given him an A.
Maybe. We'll find out afterwards. And if I got that wrong, I'll correct it next week.
So I'd have to say with the congressman, he should probably be the head of HHS instead of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. looking that good at 70 years old, but that's neither here nor there. Kari Lake talks about how the congressman should be embarrassed. She should be embarrassed to give Donald Trump an A+ rating, and the same with Batya Ungar-Sargon. I don't think there's been an A+ president in my lifetime. Go back to Reagan, the first Bush, the second Bush, Clinton, Obama, Biden, and Trump the second time. There's not one of those presidents I would give an A+. With all of them, there are areas that you could say they did good things and you could say they did bad things. But you're just being a partisan if you give anybody an A+ as president. That's my opinion. With Batya Ungar-Sargon talking about how great the tariffs are and everything, and there's, what would be another way to handle this? Cenk Uygur said there is another way. Unfortunately, Piers Morgan stopped before Cenk Uygur was able to say what he was going to say. I suspect, knowing the things that Cenk Uygur has said over the years, that what he would probably say is what I would also say. And I'm not an economist, but I don't think any of these panelists on Piers Morgan show are economists either. To me, rather than using tariffs, and this is something that they should have been using for decades, Congress, to keep corporations from leaving the country to begin with, you do it with taxes. You give the lowest tax rates to the companies who manufacture in the United States, employ American workers, pay good wages, provide good benefits. You give those companies the lowest tax rate. The companies that decide to manufacture outside of the United States, they're not employing American workers or very many American workers. They're obviously not paying wages to American workers and providing benefits. Those corporations get the highest tax rate, and you don't allow them to hide their money offshore and have all the loopholes and everything. That's the way you fix the problem. I mean, at this point, the genie is out of the bottle, and they've been manufacturing overseas so long that any economic experts say that it would take so long to get the manufacturing back here. And in order to get the manufacturing back here, you have to subsidize companies, which the Trump administration isn't going to do. They don't want to spend money on anything except military and parades for Trump. But tax rates are the way that you get more manufacturing done in the United States, in my opinion. And I think that's what Cenk Uygur was going to say. I don't want to put those words in his mouth, but knowing Cenk Uygur, his policy views over the years, I bet that is what he would say. But let me know what you think about all this. Who did you agree with here? Cenk Uygur, the congressman from Michigan, I don't want to botch his name again, Kari Lake, or Batya Ungar-Sargon, or Piers Morgan, who thinks that magically Donald Trump is going to solve all these problems in the next 100 days. Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.